do real quick on the butler, because I know you're dying about this.
No,
Don't call him a butler, but does he... Let's talk about the environment that was created. It is a spiritual voice. I don't think even Franklin's going to debate a very influential one in New Square, but at the end of the day, people aren't following orders because he's not in a position to give them. Your response?
My response is that I have more respect for Mr. Snithout to believe that he believes anything he's just said. And I have more respect for the viewers to understand that they would have any belief in anything he said. For instance, he starts talking about my making a hate-based comment, but obviously he's totally misinformed about what happened. What happened was we had a press conference outside the Rottenberg's house 4 days after this event. At the press conference, a gentleman who associated himself with the Grand Rabbi and said to me he was the designee of the Grand Rabbi to stop us from speaking.
Do we have that clip, guys? Can you roll that clip now?
I live in Zooland.
Put that as your streamline on the news. I think you get the picture. We're not in America to some. I'm in America, the family's in America, okay? In America, an individual has a right to pray wherever they like.
Right by
Okay,
Jews. In America, it's freedom of speech. In America, by Jews, there's a very big wrong thing to do against the rabbi.
Now, I know you don't represent the guy, and I know you were speaking, but I will tell you from somebody outside the case who are just only a tangential following of it, a guy has third-degree burns on over half his body. His attorney's doing a press conference, and forget that he's sitting across from us at the table. He's the one that's being verbally accosted. It's not sympathy for the guy who's burned. It's the audacity that somebody could be representing somebody and even having any kind of claims against the Grand Rabbi. To the outside observer, it looked like it was turned upside down.
Rich, how many people were there?
I said, you don't represent the guy.
No. One person who I won't comment on,
right,
never said he was a designee of the Rebbe.
As they say in your thing, you open the door on that one, okay? Just one point. No, but Frank, I'm going to let you respond to it. Again, I want to give credit to the Journal News, who did a lot of reporting on this. More than a dozen, I think 2 dozen folks who were attending the school who all spoke in the condition of anonymity for fear of reprisal. One person said this, and this is a former yeshiva classmate of Shoel Spitzer, who is alleged to be the attacker in this case. He says, it's like a mafia. They make the Rebbe like a king and would kill themselves to save the Rebbe. They're very dictating people, and they like the action. They act out just to show they own the community. And that is a constant refrain with every person we talk to about this, that there's one single voice that's doing the talking, and it's your client. You see, you've heard the pattern. I know you're obviously prepping for the case. It's not just one guy, is it?
You refer to that film clip.
I could.
There are 8,000 people who live in that community. One person showed up, who I'm not going to demean, but if you see the full film clip, you'll get a sense of what that person suffers from. Moving aside to that, I don't know who unnamed sources are. I do know that it is very easy to create a certain stereotypical image against religious leaders, especially in a sympathetic case like this. And it is sympathetic. And therefore we want to create, for instance, Mr. Sussman has consistently referred to Kiryas Yoel. This isn't Kiryas Yoel.
It's worse than Curious Joel by many degrees.
The fact of the matter is, he referred to it.
I referred to it.
This isn't Curious Joel. The question really is, he brought a complaint here. The complaint, you hit on it. The complaint has no facts, no statement, which is required by law, a plain statement of facts that actually connect the Rebbe to anything.
And but do you see a series of dots, though, Franklin, that in an event, then in the conclusion connect?
No,
you got a guy whose kids literally find their school desks on his front porch. You see harassment to the point where they call the cops 8 times. You see the point here where people are literally gathered in groups in front of the home. And then finally a guy with accelerant lights himself and obviously the victim on fire right on his own property.
What I really see is I see some people who, contrary to the words of the Rebbe, acted out for what they believed, possibly incorrectly, they believe was inappropriate conduct on the part of Mr. Sussman's client, and they acted out. That doesn't create in a community of 8,000 some vast conspiracy And it's not alleged.
Okay.
It's not
so
stated.
Let me ask you, Michael, the $18 million question. At the end of the day, why should we not be sure that this guy, Shaul Spitzer, if the allegations are proven true, wasn't just some hothead here who decided to take action into his own hands? Why does the responsibility come back to the man who he was not a butler to?
Well, I think cognitively there's a dissonance in claiming, as this Grand Rabbi has claimed since he took over for his father, that he controls the community. And we'll be able to easily establish that what Mr. Snithouse says about spiritual control, it's spiritual control, it's control of the educational institution, it's control of philanthropy in the community, it's control of the government in the community, it's all reaching control. That's the control this gentleman exercised, and we'll be able to establish that from numerous sources. There's no question in my mind about that. And then his direction was very clear. And we have people on the inside who'll speak to his direction. His direction was not merely make them feel uncomfortable. That's how it started in September. The direction escalated to phone calls that basically you won't have a house in 2 weeks. If the Grand Rabbi, Mr. Snithouse, has said publicly, as has the PR representative for this group, they've said publicly that the Grand Rabbi hates violence and he decries violence. Where was the Grand Rabbi speaking in the months of September, October, November, all through the time this incident happened? When, you know, my client lives right down the block from the Grand Rabbi Synagogue. They're on the same block on Truman. The cars were being, windows were being smashed, the house was being smashed literally 100 yards from the synagogue. So there was no mystery about what was going on here. And by the way, this is not an isolated incident. That same Grand Rabbi has run numerous families out of this community.
But did he have a responsibility, Michael, as much as ethically you may hope he would, legally, to speak out against it?
Absolutely. He had an absolute responsibility. He had absolute control of the community. Absolute 100% control of the community. And Mr. Snithouse can sit and laugh, but his laughter is counterintuitive to those who understand what religious control is about in a community like this. It's a total control of community life. Mr. Spitzer never in a million years at 4 o'clock in the morning would be doing an act like this on his own. No way in the world.
Just, you know, Mr. Sussman has just given you all conclusions. He sits there and says, this is total control, authoritarian control, because he's superimposing his own, very frankly, bigotry and prejudice. The reality is, he has not alleged one fact. One fact. He's not told you, Rich, nor your viewers, one fact.
Rather, well, let's start here. They lived in the same house.
That's
one
was,
fact, isn't it?
No, they did not.
They did live in the same house, and you know it. You just said it's a big house. You just said it was a big house, Mr. Snithouse. They lived in the same house, correct?
You don't need to interrupt.
Is that correct, Mr. Snithouse?
What Mr. Sussman has done, and I will show you, real lawyers lawyer in court. They don't do press releases where they file against Curious Yoel, they file this particular lawsuit, they call press conferences, because what this really is to basically enhance his own agenda.
Okay.